This is Rich, Hot, and Free. What's up, and welcome to another episode of Rich, Hot, and Free. I'm Jill Stanton, and guys, I am just so blown away from the feedback from last week's episode and all the DMs I've been getting around my updates and the energy that I'm in lately. It just truly means so much to me. So thank you for reaching out and for all the kind words. It truly does mean so much to me. So today we are going to continue with this energy and dive into something that I've honestly been playing with in my own life for a while now, and that is reinvention. And it's not just me who's in this chapter, but also a ton of my clients, a bunch of my friends and peers are also navigating a huge moment of reinvention. And it can be challenging and slightly confusing to really figure out how to navigate it when you're in the thick of it. You know what I mean? And again, I'm still in this phase for myself, but I've expanded massively in the last couple months, like I talked about in last week's episode. And so I wanted to share what's worked for me and how I actually did it and how I've also supported other people through this, because I think there's this thing I find tends to happen with a lot of women in this space where they hit a point in their business or their life where everything it looks fine on paper, right? Like the revenue is there, the clients are there, the success is technically there, and yet something just feels off. And that is such a mindfuck because you assume you're being ungrateful or selfish or high maintenance, or that you must be doing something wrong, or that you're never satisfied because you're quote unquote supposed to feel lit up. I mean, that's what you worked for, right? And yet deep down, it feels like things just don't fit anymore. It feels like you're wearing like an ill-fitting dress that is too tight or restrictive, or it doesn't make you feel like the hot motherfucker that you are. And often I find what happens when people experience this moment, or at least what I have personally experienced, and the pattern that I would default to was that I would try to outwork that feeling. Do you know what I mean by that? Like, I thought if I just pushed harder or did more or lost myself in work things that I would feel quote unquote better. But then that just had me in my head spiraling into thoughts like, what the fuck is wrong with me? Like, why does this feel so off? Why do I feel so off? Isn't this what I said I wanted? Or shit like, why do I always do this? You know, like all that unhelpful shit that we tend to default to. And what I want to focus on today is a third option that I started entertaining thanks to all the conversations with my girlfriends, of course. And that is, what if nothing is actually wrong with you? Okay? What if that tight, restless, like something has to change feeling is actually your next version of yourself or your next reality trying to come through for you now? And the only reason it's uncomfortable is because it's new and unfamiliar. And we tend to resist stuff that is new and unfamiliar when really it's what we need the most. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. We are going to be talking about the reinvention era and how to know if you're ready for it, how to do it, and how to integrate it and become a newer, more expanded, more elevated version of yourself. Because no one really talks about the ins and outs of this stuff enough. And then women think that they're, like breaking down or having existential crises when really they're just becoming their hottest, richest, freest selves. All right. So let's get into it. And let's kick it off with how to know if you're ready for a reinvention. Okay. So first, I want to reframe what reinvention even is, because I think there's this like cultural narrative around it that makes it sound dramatic, like that you have to blow up your whole life or be erratic or be in this chaotic energy or have a whole fucking breakdown and like completely start over from scratch. And sometimes, sure, maybe that's necessary. But to me, real reinvention isn't that chaotic, at least in my personal experience. Like for me, real reinvention it's been more subtle. It's been more intentional. And it can be quite a thrill if you learn how to stay present and how to stay steady in it. Okay. And I know everyone is different, obviously, but like I can really only share my perspective. And for me, my reinvention process started as a deep internal knowing that the version of me who was running the show had hit her max capacity. Like she had taken me as far as she could. And that continuing to operate as her was going to cost me more than becoming the next version of myself. Does that make sense what I'm trying to say? And yes, it felt overwhelming in moments, but it also felt so fucking exhilarating when I tuned into the possibility of it. And I think where some women get tripped up is that they don't recognize that feeling for what it is, which is just the energy of possibility. Okay. And so they self-diagnose it as like burnout or not being grateful enough for what they have, or they think they need to try a new strategy, or they think they're just feeling stuck. And then they immediately try to fix it instead of just anchoring into the moment and getting clear on where they're being called to go and who they want to become next. So, how do you know if what you're feeling is you craving a reinvention? I've got a couple questions that I'm going to walk you through and actually, I really want you guys to pause this and answer it as I ask you these questions and notice what comes up for you. Okay, you ready? First, do you feel more like you're maintaining your life than actually building it? Like, are you keeping the plate spinning, but not actually excited about where any of it is going? What comes up for you as I ask you that? Second question, is there a version of you that you've been quietly fantasizing about who feels nothing like who you are right now? Not just like a more successful version, I mean a different version of you. Different energy, different standards, a different way of moving through her life, through the world. Allow yourself to answer this honestly. Please don't push away whatever comes up for you. This is such a clutch question. Question 3. When you imagine your business looking exactly like it does today, 1 year from now, does that feel exciting for you or suffocating for you? Be brutally honest with yourself here. All right? Next question. Question 4. Are you saying yes to things out of obligation, habit, or identity rather than because you actually want to do them? So this could be things like your offers, your clients, your content, your relationships, your routines, like whatever it is for you. Answer that honestly. Question 5. Have you started shrinking in spaces that you used to own? Or have you started avoiding the visibility that you used to actively chase? How are you showing up right now? Write it out. Question 6. Is how you're showing up in your business a true reflection of who you actually are right now? Or, if you're being really honest with yourself, are you performing a version of yourself that you've kind of already outgrown? Sit with that and answer it honestly. And then finally, question 7, are you waiting for a sign or permission or for the right moment to become the version of you that already exists in your head? Like, is there another version of you that you know is ready to come through, but you're just like holding off because you think you need some sort of external confirmation before you actually make those moves? Write out whatever comes up for you, okay? It's so important to be honest with yourself with these questions. Now, I want you to look at your answers, and if more than 3 of those felt like an exhale to you, or made you feel some sense of relief that you could finally admit something that you've been holding back on, then I personally view that as a signal that you're ready for your reinvention era. So, how do we execute on a reinvention? Like, how do you reinvent yourself? For me, there were different phases to this, to be honest. And no one really told me about this when I was going through it. I just had to like kind of feel my way / scream cry my way through it. And it felt clunky and confusing and isolating and lonely. But now, looking back, I can see that there were some very clear phases of my reinvention, okay? Like there was a process to it. And if you don't know what those phases are, you might freak out when you hit the uncomfortable parts because you'll think you're doing it wrong, or that, I don't know, like something has gone wrong, or that shit is going sideways. So let me walk you through them, okay? Because this is what worked for me. Phase 1, I call it the rumble. And this is where everything starts. It's like that subtle, low grade dissatisfaction that you just can't fully name or articulate yet. And it can feel confusing for you because technically nothing's wrong, but you can feel that something is off. And you feel slightly restless or kind of bored or maybe a little resentful in ways that you can't even totally justify or explain yet. And in this phase, you might feel guilty for feeling this way because, again, technically things are quote unquote fine. And that slight sense of guilt keeps you from leaning into what the feeling is actually trying to tell you. And what's really happening in this phase is the next version of you is starting to press against the edges of your current identity. And she's trying to get your attention. Okay. And in my experience, this is where most women who are navigating this phase try to dismiss this moment or ignore it or bury themselves in work so that they don't have to feel it or navigate the confusion that they feel around it. But it actually leads to them feeling more confused because it's not like a productivity thing or a work thing or an external thing. It's an internal nudge that is just like begging you and poking at you to be acknowledged. And then once you finally do acknowledge it is when things then start to move into the second phase, which is where something cracks or breaks open for you. So this could be, I don't know, like a launch that flops, or it's a client who drains every last fucking drop of your energy from you, or a friendship or a relationship that feels unignorably misaligned for you now, or a win that just feels hollow to you now, or a moment where you sit down to work and you just like can't. Or sometimes it's not even a dramatic thing. Sometimes it's just like a random Wednesday afternoon where you realize you haven't felt genuinely lit up in months and you don't know how you got here. I need a sip of water. And if you've been through this, you know how frustrating these moments can be because you're starting to become aware of it, but it's still murky. And you're still like, what the fuck is it that feels off? And why does it feel off? Like it's like banging your head against an energetic brick wall. You know what I mean? But what you need to realize in these moments is that these moments aren't bad. They're not wrong. They're catalyst moments. Okay? And this is where some women rise to the moment and some women start to white knuckle and try to control things. And I get it because I did that too. Because when things start to feel off and you can't fully name why, the instinct is to grab the fucking wheel harder and grip the shit out of it. And try to fix the external so that you don't have to feel the internal discomfort. So the ones who white knuckle it, they double down on what's not working and it exhausts the shit out of them, truthfully. Because they try to launch more, or they try to post more, or they try to do more, or they get more input, or they redesign their offer suite, or they do a rebrand, or they find something external to optimize so that they can feel like they're moving even when deep down they just know they're spinning. And I've watched so many brilliant women do this. They run themselves ragged trying to outwork a feeling. And then they wonder why they're exhausted and still feel those same sneaky feelings like 6 months later. But I'll tell you right now, you cannot strategy your way out of an identity upgrade. Like absolutely not. Because it's not an external thing. It's an internal thing. And the ones who get that, like the ones who step up to the plate, the ones who do the most uncomfortable work, which is to sit with the discomfort of transformation instead of trying to get rid of it, they are the ones who start to see what those feelings are actually trying to point them towards, which is, of course, your soul basically nudging you into your next level of expansion and your next level. And it's trying to show you that you're ready for it. Okay, which then moves you into the third phase of the reinvention process, which is the in-between phase. Okay, and this phase, like this one can be a mind fuck for a lot of people. It's the phase nobody really talks about or wants to address because it feels messy and ungrounded and shaky and uncertain, right? And it's where you're letting go of the old version of you. Like you're starting to raise your standards and you're starting to show up differently and you're starting to shift how you see yourself and you're starting to make more elevated moves and decisions. But then at the same time, it doesn't feel natural yet. It doesn't feel anchored yet. You still feel like a bit of a baby deer. Like you're still trying at it. And it still feels like you're in this weird liminal space where you don't, fully recognize yourself. So you feel ungrounded and disoriented, like you can't find your footing, and decisions feel hard because you're not sure who's making them. And your energy might feel inconsistent. And it feels like, like scrambly. If you've been in this phase before, or if you find yourself in this phase right now, hear me when I tell you this. This is not going backwards, okay? This is transformation in motion. Think about it like a home renovation, okay? When you're renovating your place, your home looks like a fucking disaster, okay? You can't live in it. There's mess everywhere. It looks like chaos, right? But that mess is also evidence that something better is in motion, right? Something more beautiful is in the process of being made. And this is where you have to keep your head on straight and really learn how to manage your emotions and stay focused on the becoming and not the current stage of excavation or renovation that you're going through. Okay? This is where you have to double down on your self-trust and anchor into a new level of devotion to your next highest and brightest self, because it can be so easy to cave when it feels messy and emotional and slightly chaotic. Thankfully, though, that phase is temporary. Thank the Lord. Because after navigating your way through that phase, you move into phase 4, which is the emergence. All right. And this is where things start to really click and fall into place. And this new way of being starts to feel normalized, right? This elevated way of operating or of moving in your life becomes normal. It's just how you move now. So it's not some big flashy lightning bolt moment where everything just changes in an instant. No, it's an unfolding. It's a falling into place. It's like aligned velocity. Okay, so decisions that used to feel hard start feeling obvious to you. You start making moves from a different frequency, right? You start taking bigger swings. You start showing up as more of yourself. You start being more fully expressed. You start selling more powerfully, and you can feel the difference. Your content starts feeling alive again. The right people start showing up in your life again. Money starts to shift for you. Energy starts to shift for you. And you start to notice that old patterns aren't pulling at you the way that they used to. They don't drag you down like they used to. You're not done, but you can also feel that you're actively becoming a more expanded version of yourself, which then ushers in phase 5, which is the integration. And this is where it becomes who you are, not something you're working at. Okay? So your new identity stops being a stretch and it starts becoming your standard. It starts being your standard. And you look back at who you were with genuine love and genuine relief that you've expanded beyond her now. And this is the phase that feels like such a thrill. It's where you just feel like you're onto one. You know, you feel magnetic. You feel like you have an aligned velocity to you. Like things are just moving. Things are flowing. Ideas are flowing. Things are dropping into place. You're lit up. You feel alive. You feel energized. And you're present to the fact that you're here now. Oh, it's like the best fucking feeling. This is my favorite phase. I could do without phase 1 to 3, to be honest. Phase 4 and 5, yes, please. So now that you know the process and how your reinvention typically unfolds, now I want to jam on how to actually do it. Like how to actually reinvent yourself, or at least what's worked for me, okay, personally. So step 1 for me was to get brutally honest about who I was operating as, who you've been operating as, not who you want to be, not your future self vision, who you have actually been showing up as, and the shadows that you might currently be operating out of. Okay? So what were her beliefs about money? The you that you've been being. What are her standards? What is she currently abandoning herself around? What does she believe about whether she deserves what she says she wants or not? Like, what does she say yes to that drains her? What does she keep avoiding? What standards does she tolerate that future her would never fucking stand for? Get honest with yourself and list all of that out, not to judge yourself, but to look at your current patterns and understand where you're currently at and who you're currently being. Okay? And then from there is step 2, and that's to get really specific about who you're becoming. Okay? Future you. The you who has everything you say you want. And I mean specific. Not like, I want to feel more confident. None of this, I want to be a better version of myself kind of bullshit. Okay? I'm talking granular. Like, what does she believe about herself and what's possible for her? How does she make decisions? What is her relationship like with money? What does she say yes to? What does she absolutely not tolerate anymore? How does she handle the hard moments? Who has access to her? I want you to think on all of this and actually write it down, because I'm telling you right now, vague identities create vague results. And vague results feel like nothing's working when actually what's happened is you've just given yourself nothing concrete to aim at. Okay? So the more specific the blueprint, the more your nervous system has something to actually wire towards and expand into and regulate and calibrate to. Okay? And then from there is step 3, which is to make one decision from her identity every single day, even if you don't feel ready for it yet. Honestly, I swear this is like the one that makes people the most uncomfortable, because we're conditioned to wait until we feel like her before we act like her. But with identity work, that's completely backwards. Okay? You don't feel your way into a new identity. You act your way into it. You be your way into it. Okay? So pick one decision that she would make, your next highest and brightest self, that your current self is delaying on, and then make it. That's it. That's the work. And the more you can do that every single day, the more you will expand your identity and your capacity and what is possible for you. And then once you've done that, then step 4 is to audit your environment. Now listen, this one is so underrated and yet so critically important. I was just talking about this with my friend Jade, who just moved here, and I am so fucking excited about this. And we were talking about this as she was making this decision. So when you're reinventing yourself, you have to take note of who you're surrounded by and the frequency that you're surrounded by from the people that you're around the most, right? And you have to ask yourself, do those people reflect who you're becoming and everything you say you want for your life? Or are they more of a match to who you've been being? And not just people. You can also start to audit what you've been consuming. So what are you listening to? What are you reading? What are you watching? What kind of conversations are you taking part in? What are the things that you were tolerating in your business or in your relationships that no longer match who you want to be? And ask yourself, do they match? Are they an energetic match to who I am becoming? Because here's what I know to be true. You cannot sustain a reinvention in an environment that keeps demanding the old version of you continue to show up. Because the environment will win out every single fucking time if you don't consciously change it, because it's so familiar to you. And also, like, real quick, I'm not saying you have to completely cut people out of your life. I think it's important to mention that. I'm not saying that you have to cut people out. Okay? I'm just saying that you should decrease your proximity to them in whatever way possible, whatever way makes sense for you. So maybe that's taking longer to respond to them, or maybe it's not hanging out with them as often, or maybe it's not entertaining certain conversations or certain activities anymore. Like, whatever it is or whoever it is that is no longer a match for your next highest and brightest needs to be dialed down so that the aligned people, the aligned conversations, the aligned environments, and aligned opportunities and possibilities can find their way into your life. Okay? And then the final step, step 5, is to build daily reps. Like, take daily swings at it. Be it every single day, consciously and consistently, because that's how it starts to compound. Like I said before, identity isn't built in one transformational moment. It's not one big decision or one big launch or one big investment or one big change. It's the hundreds of small daily decisions where you choose to be her over defaulting to the familiar, old, comfortable version of you. And again, you do that by running every decision through the filter of, what would she do here? What decision would she make? Okay? Not aspirational you, the version of you that you are actively becoming right now. What would she do? And then go do that, even when it's uncomfortable. No, especially when it's uncomfortable. Okay? Because every single time you act from that new identity, you're building evidence. Okay? You're compounding that way of being. You're normalizing that way of being. And you're showing your nervous system that this is who you are now. And that evidence compounds and stacks. And then all of a sudden, like 3 months or 6, 12, 18 months later, you have a moment where you look around and you realize you have completely reinvented yourself and your life. And you are so lit up and you feel so alive and so grateful that you did this work to reinvent yourself and become the next best version of you. I promise you, you're going to have that moment if you stick with this. And I know you guys know this, but this is what I fucking love helping people with. This is what I am a lethal weapon at helping women with. And so if you are craving a reinvention, if you know that you've outgrown your current identity and you can feel that it's time to shake up who you are and how you roll and what you make happen for yourself, if you can feel that you are ready and open and finally willing to reinvent yourself so that you can align with your next level of income and freedom and magnetism and success and impact, then I want you to hit the link in the show notes right now or go to jillstanton.com/win and book in a next big win call with me. Okay? It's 30 minutes, it's one-on-one, and it's just you and me designing your reinvention and aligning your business with that version of you. That way you don't just reinvent yourself, you completely expand what is possible for you and how big you can go in your business and in your life. So if you want that, then hit the show notes and let's design the version of you who builds what's next for you. All right. Enough out of me. Thank you so much for tuning in. I know this was fired up and we covered a lot and there's a lot of questions to go through and a lot of phases to recap and all of that. So make sure you listen to this a second time. Make sure you do those prompts and I would love to hear what lands for you. I would love to hear what comes up for you if you're bold enough to actually answer that and tell me. But again, thank you all so much for tuning in. If you are loving this episode, if you are loving the show in general, I would love it if you subscribe to it so you never miss another episode. And if you feel called to share it with someone that you care about, I would be so grateful for that. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I'll catch you next time. Peace.